So it really all began Christmas of 2012. My wife Rachel and I were back here in Newton visiting my family for Christmas at the time, and I was just dreaming about moving back to Newton to plant a church one day. And as we drove down Main Street, we got stopped at the stoplight right here at 6th and Main in front of the Fox Theater. And it was in that moment that I heard God say, "You're gonna have a church that meets in that theater one day." So then fast forward to Easter of 2014, and we launched the gathering in what was the original Norm's Coffee Bar at the time. And the church just started growing. By around June, we were looking around at each other and just kind of saying, we're gonna need to find some new space to meet in pretty soon. So we started talking with a couple of the owners of the theater, and we asked up front, would you guys sell us this theater? I mean, I said, we want to buy the theater. Well, so eventually we were told that the theater was in fact for sale, but then shortly after that, we were then told no, that they would not sell the theater to us as a church. Which, by the way, I can understand that. Okay, they had a concern that if a church bought the Fox Theater, then it might somehow get turned into like a traditional church building, and it would cease to be this theater that we all know and love and grew up with. But that was never our plan. Our vision as a church is to see our city reborn. And so our plan with the Fox Theater from day one has been to see it revived, rebuilt, and renewed for the entire city to enjoy and benefit from. So I pleaded with them at the time saying, please let us buy it. We do not want to turn it into a traditional church building. We want to revive it for the whole city. But ultimately, they still said no.
And so what did you do at that point?
We pretty much ignored that answer respectfully. We believed God had said that we would have a church that meets in that theater one day. And so even though it was no at the moment, we were convinced that it would be yes one day soon. So we actually started taking steps and making preparations as a church for that day when it would be yes. We started saving up funds so we'd be in a better position to actually purchase the Fox when that day came. And we started praying like crazy.
I remember walking around the theater with Brandon, and sometimes it was at least every week, sometimes multiple times per week, and we would just pray that God would open the doors to us. And a number of times, week after week, we would just walk up to the doors and we would place our hands on the doors and really just ask God, would you please open these doors for us?
Our family would often drive over there and pray together, and people from our church would drive over there on their lunch hour and pray.
So then on September 8th, I had parked my car in front of the Fox Theater, and I was just praying over my lunch hour, asking God to give us the theater. I just happened to look up across the street to the bank on the corner, and they always have Christmas lights up on their building all year long, but then they turn them on at Christmas time. And I remember just seeing those Christmas lights and just saying, God, I can't wait until we own this theater. We're gonna light it up for the whole town. It's gonna be so beautiful. Would you give us this theater? And it was in that moment that I heard God say, buy the Christmas lights now, Brandon. I said, come again? And he said, Brandon, take a step of faith and buy the Christmas lights now. I said, Lord, I don't know if you realize this or not, but it's only September. People do not buy Christmas lights at the beginning of September, and they especially don't buy Christmas lights for a building they don't even own yet. People are gonna think we're crazy. Buy the Christmas lights now, Brandon. So we did. In September, we went and bought Christmas lights to hang on a theater we didn't even own yet. But that sparked something within us. We actually then began to feel like God was saying to us that we should reach out and ask if we could have our Christmas Eve service at the Fox Theater. We knew they weren't going to sell it to us at the time, but we thought maybe they'll rent it to us for Christmas Eve.
So sometime in early October, we sent an email asking if we could rent the Fox Theater for Christmas Eve, and it was immediately denied.
But we just have a hard time taking no for an answer when it's something that we believe God is leading us to do.
So we waited a couple weeks, and we asked again.
And we were told no for a second time.
And then a third time.
So finally, on December 18th, we asked again. And this time, we even offered triple their normal rental rate. We thought, let's make them an offer they can't refuse. But then, for the fourth time, we were told no again. And again, it's not that they were trying to be mean to us, okay? We knew they had their reasons. But at the same time, you have to keep in mind that we never stopped praying throughout this whole thing. In fact, here's what had happened. Earlier in November, I was actually taking my lunch hour and praying in the parking lot behind the Fox Theater. And as I was praying, I really felt like I heard the Lord say, Brandon, I want you guys to be prepared because I'm gonna give you the theater at the last minute. You know, it was one of those times where I was like, I really think that's God. God, was that you or was that just me? So the next day I'm having lunch with my good friend Brandon Jameson, who has been hugely involved with the gathering since day one. And as we're eating lunch, he just looks at me and he says, you know, I was praying yesterday and I heard the Lord say that we need to be prepared because He's gonna give it to us at the last minute.
And so I shared that with Brandon while we were eating, and it was one of those events I'll probably never forget. His jaw just hit the floor. We knew God was in it. We knew God was going to do a miraculous work. And so once that kind of excitement wore down, then we decided, hey, we need to get to work. And so we started making plans of what it was going to take to be able to move Christmas Eve service from Norm's to the Fox Theater.
We got the sound system ready, we got the decorations ready, we formatted slides for the theater screen.
One of my favorite memories is when Brandon Jameson actually ordered those giant spotlights to put outside the Fox Theater so that we could hopefully show everyone that we were in fact having Christmas Eve at the Fox.
And then this is probably the biggest step of faith we took on December 14th and December 21st. I got up in church and then told the church, even though we've been told no 4 times already, and even though we do not have permission to be in the Fox Theater on Christmas Eve, I want you to go ahead and invite your friends and invite your family and plan to celebrate Christmas Eve at the Fox Theater. And then after that, we reached out and asked the owners one more time if they would rent it to us for Christmas Eve.
And this time, we didn't get an immediate response back.
I remember the waiting feeling much longer than I would have liked. Probably stressful would be a good way to define those 2 days, and just feeling anxious for God to answer our prayers.
And so on December 23rd at about 3 in the afternoon, I felt like Jesus said, Brandon, it's go time. You need to stop what you're doing and get over to that theater and pray. And so I parked my car on Main Street, just right in front of the Fox Theater, and I prayed my heart out. I mean, at that point, it was the last minute. I was just asking God with everything I had, would you give us this theater? I think I texted half the church at that point, and I was like, stop what you're doing. You need to pray with me. And it's hard to describe, but after about an hour of just fierce prayer, just all of a sudden, I really felt just this incredible sense of calm came over me. And I don't know how else to say it other than it just felt like, I felt like I could feel that there was a breakthrough that had happened. And so sure enough, at that moment, 4 p.m. in the afternoon, on December 23rd, it's the last minute. My phone dings, and I got a text from one of the owners, and the text said, the theater's yours. You guys can have it for Christmas Eve tomorrow night.
And how did that feel?
It felt miraculous.
Lots of hugging, just lots and lots of hugging. I think everyone was just ecstatic. Thrilled would be an understatement, and I think in awe. would be a good way to describe how we felt.
We were just so blown away. I mean, there were tears, joy, celebration. We hugged, we laughed. We were just enjoying the moment.
And so once that word came out, though, we knew it's time to get to work.
A lot of cleaning that day. I helped clean the cry room, and then we helped clean all of the spilled pop and candy out of the cup holders and the seats.
I swept and mopped a lot of this floor.
So we had to clean, and we worked so hard. We were able to go and buy decorations from a couple places here in town and just make things look just perfect for that night.
We decorated that concession stand, and we had to tear it apart and then just put a layer of Christmas all over it.
So then, just a little while before the service was actually going to start, I walked into the lobby and I saw my friend Brad Jantz, one of the guys that goes to our church, and he had those Christmas lights that we had bought back in September, and he was hanging them around the main doors, the main entrance to the theater.
Yeah, so we didn't know what to expect, but 225 people showed up for Christmas Eve service.
We sang, we celebrated, we worshiped Jesus together, we took communion together, we preached the word. The gathering grew that night. I mean, it was a huge step forward for our vision to see Newton Reborn come to pass.
It was amazing. Such an answer to prayer.
I remember going up into the loft where the projection equipment is, and just being able to look down at all of the people that we'd been praying for and praying about, and just being truly amazed by what God had done.
Did that really just happen? Did we really just have Christmas Eve in the Fox?
I mean, everything that we hoped it would be is what happened that night, and it was just an amazing feeling.
Just gratefulness. Grateful that God made it happen, that He made a way for us to have the Fox on Christmas Eve.
And I saw miracle after miracle. I saw prayer after prayer being answered. I saw hearts being changed about how we were as a gathering and who we were. I saw doors open for us to be able to possibly use the Fox. I saw a spark of what the vision for our church was, and just the start of Newton Reborn.
And so the next day, Christmas morning, my family and I were actually sitting around the Christmas tree opening presents, and my phone dinged. And I had gotten an email from one of the owners of the Fox Theater. And he had forwarded me an email from one of the other owners of the Fox Theater who had actually been at our Christmas Eve service the night before. And he had written an email to all of the owners, and he said, I was at the Gathering's Christmas Eve service last night, and it was so beautiful and so moving. And he said, I can't remember the last time I've seen that many young families and people in the Fox Theater. He said, after seeing what I saw last night, I'm recommending that we sell the theater to the Gathering. I know it sounds cliche, but it really was a Christmas miracle. And so within 3 months, God made a way, and the Gathering was able to purchase the Fox Theater. And we have been working hard ever since to bring it back to life like never before. For us, it's all about seeing Newton reborn, a people and their city revived, rebuilt, and renewed by Jesus for His glory. And so we believe that seeing the Fox reborn right here in the very heart of Newton to be used as a blessing for the entire town, we believe it will serve as a visible, as a tangible demonstration of the kind of reborn life that only Jesus can give. I'm just so grateful. I'm grateful to the wonderful people who sold us the theater. I mean, in many ways, they took their own step of faith by entrusting the Fox to us. I'm so incredibly grateful to the Gathering family, everybody who was with us then, everybody who's with us now. This is really a story about their faith, about the unwillingness to give up when you know that God has said He's going to do something, even if current reality says there's no way it could happen. We heard God say, you're going to have a church that meets in that theater one day. He said, be prepared because I'm going to give it to you at the last minute. And the Gathering was faithful and God came through. And look, I'm even so grateful for all of the no's that we received all along the way, because it caused us to stretch our faith and press into God like we never had before. Above all, I am most grateful to Jesus for what He's done, for what He is doing, for everything that He has planned. There are more miracles on the way for the Fox Theater and for our whole town. The vision is to see Newton reborn, and bit by bit, sometimes it's brick by brick, but even more important than that, life by life, it just keeps happening. And it's miraculous.